Hello guys, Greg back with another video. So today I'm going to look at some underrated fragrances. Underrated for the purposes of this video can mean a few different things. So could mean that it's one that gets very little love compared to other fragrances from the same house. Could mean that it's a fragrance that you really just don't hear being talked about. Or it could be that it's just one that I think is a lot better than it gets credit for, a lot better than the reviews suggest. Of course it's just my opinion. It's just going to be on fragrances that I own. I'm not going to do the list in any type of order. I'm just going to pick each fragrance up and talk about them for a little while. I had loads more than 10 that I could have done in this video, so what I'm probably going to do is do several different videos in this same subject. But this is going to be the first 10, so let's just dive straight into it. First up, we've got one from the house of Gucci. You can see here, very imaginatively titled Gucci by Gucci, Pour Homme. Now I think this one probably gets overlooked because of the performance. The scent itself I think is fantastic. I really like this one, but it is a bit of a weak performer. It's a mild, quite light tobacco fragrance and violet as well. It's a calming fragrance. It's one that I like to wear around the house. Do really enjoy it, but as I said, it gets let down by performance, and I think that's probably why people don't really talk about that one. Next one we've got, again this is one that doesn't really get talked about, and that's why it's on the list. It was one of the first fragrances that I actually reviewed when I started doing reviews. It's from the house of Carolina Herrera, and this one's called Chic for Men. So this is a sweet, fruity, spicy fragrance. It's got a great watermelon note in here, also a great lemon note. There's pepper in here, there's cinnamon, there's also cardamom. And the cardamom in this one reminds me a little bit of the cardamom in La Nuit de l'Homme. They don't really smell alike overall, but that note is quite similar. I didn't think that, and I don't think I spoke about it when I did the review, or I might even have said that I didn't think that, but certainly over the last couple of years I've picked up that similarity. But this one's a really versatile fragrance, pretty hard to dislike actually. Well, but it's one that you just don't hear about. If anyone's interested, I will leave a link below for the full review that I did on that one. So next up, we've actually got a celebrity fragrance, but you wouldn't call it that. It's not marketed in that way. The celebrity that it's from is actually the actor Richard E. Grant, and this one is called Jack. Now this one is, I believe, exclusive to Liberties in London. In fact, at least it certainly was when the fragrance was released. And I think that's probably why it doesn't get talked about so much. But it's a shame because it's a really nice fragrance. It's a green, spicy citrus. It's got a very interesting take on the cannabis note in here. But definitely worth checking that one out if you get a chance. It's called Jack. Now, a fragrance from one of my favourite houses of all time. The house is Ormond Jane. And this fragrance is called Isfakand. Now this one is just... it's like an olfactive party goes off in my head when I smell this one. It's got a beautiful lime in here. It's got Ormond Jane's signature pink pepper. There's woods in here. It lasts quite well on my skin. Other people say this one's short-lived, but it lasts pretty well for me. I wore this to a meeting at my children's school, and I'd had it on for about 3 hours when I got there, and 2 people asked me what it was and really liked it. One person actually asked me to write it down, so I was really happy about that. I had put about 20 sprays on though, to be fair, but still. So next up we've got one from the house of Amouage. Now this one is included in the list because it gets overlooked in favour of more talked about fragrances from the house like Interlude, Epic, Reflection, Jubilation 25. But this one stands up against any of those in my opinion, and this one is called Dear Man. And I spoke about this one in my recent Best Amouage Fragrances video, and I spoke about the note of peony, which prior to doing that video, when I first got this fragrance, I had to actually research it to find out what it was. But I realised that it was the key note in this fragrance. It's a really distinctive floral aroma, but not feminine. There's also lots of plum in this one. It dries down to vetiver and incense, but it's definitely one of the best Amouages for me. That's Dear Man. Next one is one, it's included for the same reason as Dear Man. It's because it's overlooked by other fragrances from its own house. And this one is from the house of Dior, and it's called Dune Pour Homme. Now some people talk about this smelling like a sand dune. Don't really get any of that personally. For me, this is a really much about fig and sandalwood. I'm not a huge fan of fig, but I just really like it the way it's done in this fragrance. It's got that Dior quality about it. But all in all, an excellent fragrance, but one, along with Higher, it's the one from the men's range that you really don't hear talked about at all. Right, now we've got a discontinued one. Now this can actually be found still, but it's quite expensive. But this is a 10 out of 10 for me. Honestly, it's one of my favourite fragrances of all time. It's from the house of Christian Lacroix, and it's called Tumulte. Quite a cool bottle. Now, when this was released, it was actually a cheapie, but if you find it now, it actually is quite expensive. But it's the best cedar-led fragrance I think I've ever got my nose on. It's predominantly cedar. It has got a lot of sandalwood too. There's some booziness in there, and it's got a nice hit of violet. But if you can find this one, honestly, I think it's amazing. It's one of my favourite fragrances of all time. And as you guys will know, I do spend a lot of time, far too much time, smelling fragrances, and have done for many years. So that is Tumulte by Christian Lacroix. Now we've got one from Tom Ford's Private Blend collection. Like some of the others I mentioned, the reason this one's in the list is because it's overlooked and overshadowed by others in the range. But I think this one is beautiful, and I think it deserves a lot more love. And this is called Azure Lime. So this one is one of the most mouth-watering fragrances I've come across. It's like a huge burst of tropical citrus. It doesn't last for very long. Performance is pretty poor, to be perfectly honest. But that burst of citrus is amazing. And then the base is great as well. It's a musky, woody base. If they could create a version of this that lasts longer, I think it could probably challenge Aventus. It's got that same universal appeal and crowd-pleasing quality about it. So we've got two more. Next one, absolutely love this one. It's from the house of Hermes, and probably not one that you'd expect, but this is called Rocabar. Now this one is the vintage version. I've got two bottles of this. I think this is actually unopened, but I haven't tried the current version, so I can't tell you whether there's any difference between them, unfortunately. But I previously described this one as being like wearing 3 fragrances at once because it transitions so much. There's various different accords in here. It starts off with a sort of very coniferous feel. You get wood, you get vanilla, you get juniper, but it's an awesome creation, this one. It's easily my favourite release from Hermes, but it's just, again, it's one that you very rarely hear people talk about for whatever reason. And the final one that I've got, and as I said, there will be more parts to this series, is from the house of Creed. And this one is called Royal Water. And again, this one's in here because it just doesn't get talked about, or certainly outside of real fanatics, you don't really hear about it. Everyone talks about Aventus and Royal Oud and Green Irish Tweed and Millicene Imperial, but this one is a fantastic creation in my opinion. It does walk the line between masculine and feminine. It's all about citrus, mint and musk. But this one is pretty high on my favourite Creeds list at the moment. And that's another video that's coming up soon, just to mention. So there you go, guys. That's it. That's the first 10 in this series. As I said, there were quite a few that missed the cut, but I will do more instalments of this. So please leave a comment below if you can think of any others that you think are underrated. Leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, please do. And I'll see you all soon. Cheers.